right, guys. Welcome back to the Better Contractor. Today, I'm joined by Travis, as normal, with the Better Contractor, Jon with Lantern Corp, and Tucker Willms with Arrow Valley. So he's technically our first guest podcast, and we're glad to have him on.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tucker is a good personal friend, mentee, mentor at times, both. Good dude. Started his landscape company really young, because he's still young. And you've been in business how long?
7 years.
So and you're how old?
26.
So 19 years old,
Yeah.
began and kind of did a little bit of this work much younger than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not officially,
Yeah.
but technically you've been in the business probably half your life.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form. So, and then Travis, what say you, man?
Do strategy and operations for the Better Contractor.
Yeah. Jon?
I'm a project manager for Lantern Corp based out of our Illinois office.
Awesome, guys. Well, Tucker, tell us a little bit about your beginning, kind of what got you into this.
Yeah. I grew up here in Fayette County. My family, all around my family, has been entrepreneurs. And so I started cutting grass when I was 7 years old and kept that going through high school and into college. And then through college, I started doing a little bit of landscaping. And that picked up so much, I decided I'm going to drop out of college and go full bore into the landscaping. So I've been doing that for 7-8 years now.
What was the balance, or how did you work that out with class schedules, and how much were you doing on the side with the landscaping business?
Right. I was doing a pre-dental track. I wanted to be a dentist, so I thought. So it was 8 to 5 days a week in college. And so on the weekends, I'd work 20, 30 hours. And if it rained, well, that was an issue. So that was kind of my hangups. Like, if it rains, I can't get this done. I really need to make a decision here. And so went all in.
And abandoned the hopes and dreams of the dental practice.
Right. I couldn't be stuck in an office all day. I know that now.
Did you finish the degree?
No, I have 70, 80 credit hours and dropped out. Yeah. Quite a life change, to say the least.
So then you started out doing a little bit more lawn mowing, but
Right.
then you've transitioned recently to more hardscapes, right?
Right. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Basically, we just cut grass, a ton of grass to start for the first couple of years. That's all we did. Then I really wanted to get into the landscape side of things, as far as plants and lights and all of that, because I like to create things and change the property. But the more I thought about it, hardscaping really changes the property, at least has the potential to change the property. Like we do a lot of work on a lake near us, and building retaining walls and things could add a lot of usable space to a property. So I went to some classes in Kansas City for that, and up in Chicago for classes, and broke into that. And then since then, so probably 5 years ago when we started that, that's probably our main focus now, is retaining walls, patios, that sort of thing. So
7 years, and that's not that, and it seems like a lifetime. Just, I guess, is the vantage point to which you look at it. It seemed like yesterday or forever ago. Where did you get your initial equipment? Was it used, borrowed, did you take a loan, buy new stuff, using mom and dad's? Like, when you got started, what was the equipment, or how did you get started?
Yeah, in the very beginning, when I was cutting grass, like I said, my family's an entrepreneur, so I got to use one of their company trucks first of all, they drove me around to the lawns, and I unloaded and mowed, and they came back and picked me up. But then when I got my license, they let me take their truck, and they said, we'll support you by buying the fuel for your truck, or the truck, and you just got to cut the grass and buy your own equipment. So I went out and bought a brand new zero turn and used their company truck, and then came to a point where they said, all right, you've got to go buy your own truck and pay for your own fuel and do all that. So quickly after I started, I transitioned and bought a used truck, and I kept, as far as the equipment on the like lawn mowing side and landscaping side, we've always brought new. And just recently we started buying new trucks and trailers and things.
Why the focus on buying new?
Yeah, the appearance. When you roll up to a job site, we don't want to position ourselves as a smaller company, although we still are a smaller company. We want to position ourselves, we're here to provide a premium product, and we want that premium to look throughout the entire company, not just the end result. When we roll up, we want our trucks to look nice and clean, all uniform. We want the guys to look uniform. From day one, we want it to look good.
And I've noticed that too, just so Tucker has done some work for us in the past, and I remember when you first started, it was, almost like a rainbow of
Mhm.
trucks. You might get a blue one today and a white one next week. And
Yeah,
now it's very much, there's a pattern, there's a marketing. You can tell there's marketing behind it.
right. Yeah, we switched all navy blue trucks, mostly all Ram, and then we get them wrapped in our company logo, and so it all looks uniform now. So
And have you seen like tangible, right, ROI or like tangible like feedback, increase in sales? I mean, there's probably a ton of things that go into it, so it's hard to point to
sure.
one specific thing. But when you became more uniform and more professional looking, did you see increase in positive feedback from the customers or being received, like something to indicate that that really did work?
Sure. Yeah. In fact, this year we did a job 2023, we did a job that was equal to the amount of revenue we did our second year in business. And when we rolled up to that job site, the client came out and said, "This is exactly what I want to see when I roll up in my truck with it wrapped." She said, "This is exactly the type of company I want to have working here." And so she said that helped land the job.
So do your guys in the field also have like the uniforms now and everything as well?
Right. We have a contract through a company that we have uniforms from, and then we also have T-shirts.
Okay. I think that's a huge thing too in this industry. And I know at our house, having hired several different contractors over the years, you can almost tell who's going to do a better job the moment they roll up.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of companies that may be listening to this don't underestimate or undervalue spending that little bit of extra money to actually look professional. Now, with that said, once you arrive on site, you got to deliver it though too.
For sure.
So I've seen some companies do that as well, and I think you guys do a good job. I know some of the guys you had out with us, like they're awesome.
Yeah.
So they fit that image. But the one thing you don't want to do as a company is market yourself one way, look one way, and the product or service is a completely different way. So
Yeah.
I think you guys have done a good job on that, and that's a good story. Do you have any idea, like percent of growth? So once you pulled that Band-Aid off,
Mhm.
and you said, okay, we're wrapping trucks, we're doing all this. Did you see like a 20% growth, 30% growth?
I don't have those stats. They would just be a guess if I had that. The company is, in the past 2 years, we've more than doubled, and we started wrapping a year and a half ago. So,
So
I mean, there's some stats to that,
but I mean, obviously there's more than just that to it.
Right.
You know that clip, there's a wrapping company out there somewhere who's just going to grab that clip, and now
Yeah,
it's a whole
yeah,
market.
yeah.
Double your business.
Double this company just by wrapping
Tucker
trucks.
said.
Yeah.
Takes a little more than that, but hey, that's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it goes past just the wrapping the trucks. I think how you market yourself online, on who you're marketing to, and how you're marketing. Like, for example, we have, after every one of our jobs now, we have a professional photographer come in behind us and take pictures of it. So I take pictures with our iPhone before we start, and then afterwards we have a professional photographer, and then you can see the before and afters, and they're often much, much better, higher quality. So I think that sets it apart too.
Yeah, and that's one thing we've done at Landercorp, is having someone actually take professional photos, instead of just using photos off of a crew's iPhone or whatever, which we did do some in the beginning.
That's how I did too,
and it definitely shows in your social media. So, but I think having that full service marketing, which I think is a good point that you're getting at. A lot of people want to go on, especially some of you younger guys, and just have a social media following.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't enough. There's got to be the uniformity of uniforms, trucks. Some print. I know you've got some billboards.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen those around. Got a photo of himself on it, so he looks like
it's
almost like an attorney ad.
Yeah, it used to. I took that down. I realized that was enough of that. Yeah,
this is what he looks like.
Yeah,
if you see him around town.
Yeah,
but it's a uniformity of marketing where at all those different touch points all go back to the same message.
Yeah,
so you're not just out there saying, here's a job I did, because from a marketing perspective, you've got to highlight what you're different or what's different about you. And so I see a lot of companies like, oh, I mowed this lawn. Well, guess what? There's thousands of people that mow lawns for a living. So I think that's cool that you're doing more of a full service approach on marketing. So
right. And just yesterday I was in a meeting and the client asked me, he said, hey, I've been looking at your pictures. Are all your pictures online actually your work? I said, absolutely. I said, yeah, we don't post any stock photos or from anybody else. I think that's a big thing too. I know when you're first starting out, it's hard to accumulate all the photos because you haven't done all the jobs, but work with what you have. I wouldn't want to put out a message that we can do this and it wasn't ours.
Yeah.
Right. Almost guerrilla market it. Do your own yard, do your family's yard,
right.
get the stock photos built up.
Right.
As opposed to, so Brent and I were just talking about some marketing agencies and then businesses, how they'll go out to like these Getty Images or whatever, these companies that sell professional type photos, and oftentimes you think, well, I'll go buy a couple professional photos, so it gives me that image of I'm bigger than I am, or I'm more professional. I got the but it actually has a reverse effect in that when clients see, like, I've seen that image before. They're like, I mean, I've seen that in like 3 other ads for other companies,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they know that it's just a purchase photo, and it gives the air of fake or inauthentic, and it has the reverse effect by
Yeah.
going out and just buying just random stuff offline.
Yeah. And I think you do a good job. I know, like, because you do hardscapes. So the before and afters, I think, are always cool, which I've seen several of those. And I know, Travis, going back to your point with like the bought in photos, in house, we try to do a little bit more of an artistic take to the photo. And we try to make sure that there's a little bit of branding, whether that's the logo on the side of the truck door, something that lets people know this is actually our job site. We're not buying this from somewhere.
Right.
So
that's a good idea. And when I first started, I mentioned not having those photos to market. One of the things I did was I found I met a contractor at a water feature event, and he's from South Carolina, and he all he does is water features, and we were wanting to get into that. So I was chatting with him about his business and how he got into it. And I said, hey, during our slow season, can I come down to your place and work for you for a week or two on my dime? Don't pay me anything. I just want to learn from you and run some of these jobs with you to help maybe get some pictures for us, and also learn how the process works and how you sell them. And so for 2 years in a row, I brought one of our right-hand guys down with me, and we worked for 2 weeks down there for this company, and got a lot of awesome photos, but a lot of cool waterfalls and fountains. And so that was when I could exponentially increase what we can offer, and quickly. I didn't have to go sell these jobs myself to get the photos and work on them and actually learn it. So I would recommend that if you can.
Creative problem solving, like that's
Right.
not something that you'd necessarily think.
Right.
But yeah, it's a win-win essentially. Like he got some photos and built up his skills, and you got by doing partnerships. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's the partnership, and then kind of like he was a mentor.
Yeah.
He wasn't worried about it because you're not in his district,
right?
So he can pour into someone. So don't undervalue that either. There's so much power, especially at your age, learning from someone. How old was he?
40s.
Yeah. So he's got probably 20 years of experience that you don't have. So, that's powerful, I think, and people don't realize how powerful it is. So one thing, go ahead.
One of the reasons that I did that is I was trying to take time out of the equation. I know I could have gotten to a point where I could have sold those jobs myself and built them and done them like for family, but I wanted the knowledge now, and I wanted the pictures now because I wanted to start building it quicker. So I looked for other people who had already done it and then partnered with them. So that's
smart. That's real smart. So for you guys that are wanting to kind of exponentially grow your business, what he just elaborated on there will be super helpful. So if you can learn from someone like that, and what may have taken you 3 or 4 years to have learned and implemented, if you can shorten that down to a year and your goal is to double your company, well, look what he just did by doing that. So he actually made it possible, and he made it possible to do it without scaling chaos, which we've talked about in some of the previous podcasts. And it's kind of a term I like to use a lot, but I see that mistake made a lot, though, where people will go through and scale chaos, and then all of a sudden 5 years in there, they look at their company and are thinking, man, this is really chaotic and I don't like it at all. Then you got to take 2 years and fix it. And in those 2 years, you've lost customers, your revenues are down, your growth pattern's down. So you go through and like, oh man. So, but if you do it the right way, you should see that nice increase.
Right. One of my mentors, he says that, like, if you're going to build a house, you don't build a 2-story house on a 1-story house plan. He's like, so if you're going to build it, you don't build a foundation for a 1-story house and then decide, hey, I want to make a 2-story and just slap another story on top. He's like, you've got to build that into the foundation to be able to support that second story. He said, that's how you should run your business too. Start with the end in mind so you know where you're going and can prepare for it.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot. So one thing I had written down, and I like asking entrepreneurs this. So entrepreneurship obviously is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
On social media, everybody likes to post their wins a lot, or people like to complain and get pity and empathy for the hard days. So, but one thing I like to do is take those hard moments, we all have them, and share with other people like, hey, this happened, but this is what I learned from it. This is how I strategically changed my business. So I like to look at it that way, more of a learning moment than necessarily a negative.
Sure.
Is there anything you can think of, like, is there a day that comes to mind or a period that comes to mind in your course of business that, like, that day was rough, but looking back now, you're like, man, that was actually an amazing learning moment?
Yeah. This was shortly after we were in business when we were just cutting grass. We were actually sued by a guy who wrecked his motorcycle, and on a straight road he wrecks it, and he sued us because he said there was grass in the street. And this was an event that happened a year. He sued us like 360 days after the event. And so whenever we got the papers for it, we had to go back and look at our records. And we had just started, and I was still in college at the time. So my record keeping was non-existent. Like I couldn't even told you what day we were there. I knew we were there that week because we never missed a week, but I couldn't even told you the day. And so when the attorneys were wanting all the information, when you're there, what are the pictures from the job sites, all of that, I had nothing to go off of other than I said, we don't blow grass in the street. And so I'm like, this has got to change now. And luckily, to conclude the story, luckily we got body cam footage from the police officer that showed no grass in the street. So that saved us. But you can't count on that. Had we had documentation of when we were there, what times we were there, and then the end of the job pictures, we could have proved that. And so now we do that. Now we have a software that keeps track of when we're on the job, how long it took to travel there. We have company photos from the job. So now we're backed up in case anything like that.
So that kind of resonates with Travis and Jon here, because Jon does a lot of that for LandRecorp, the recording and all the software, and Travis, obviously, everything has to do with tech. You like, so.
Yeah. Data is very important in what we do, and being able to not only have the data, but access it easily and quickly.
Yeah.
Goes back to the body cam photos. That probably wasn't easy to obtain.
Right. Yeah. And we had to get awfully creative to find that. We were searching for anything to find some way to prove that we didn't. But had we just done what we do now, it wouldn't have been an issue. It would have been a 10-minute ordeal and not a 2-week headache trying to figure out what was going on.
So, yeah, and probably a lot of hours on your end.
A lot of hours on our end, yeah, for sure. A lot of worrying, especially.
That was the first year that you were in business that you had that incident?
That may have been second, but right in the beginning.
But so you learned that lesson quick.
Well, technically back in high school, I had buddies help me. But as far as soon as the business opened, I had 2 or 3 employees.
So you had these processes in place?
Well, when the business opened, I had the employees, but no processes.
Okay.
I was just trying to land jobs to keep these guys busy.
Yeah.
And myself busy at the time. So, yeah, so I had nothing. It was exactly what you're saying, the tactical, like, how exactly do we do this and how do we do it efficiently? And not how do we record it and how do we keep the back end things in order? And then the more I look about, like, where do I want the company to go? Well, we're trying to make the company something that is almost like a luxury brand in the service industry. And we want it to be, one of my goals is to have the highest paid teammates for the industry standard anyway. And in order to do that, we've got to really track our numbers, and we're building out bonus structures and everything. And that takes a lot of time as far as software recording, how long each thing took based on what we bid it and that sort of thing. So as I started going down to where I wanted it to go, I backtracked and said, I've got to have some software in place in order to actually track this. So this is something that can proceed.
So the fact that you learned that early helped you, because you could do all this later, but the more legacy processes that build up and things, you're doing things on paper and spreadsheets and whatever, that legacy, it's harder to then, especially if you have employees or staff that are used to this and have been with you for a few years, and this is their routine, for you to come back in like, all right, we got the software, like, are you kidding me? And to try, it's easier to do it and then grow the business. So take the 19-year-old Tucker. What could have, I mean, and there's a balance, there's a dichotomy to both too. You can get buried in the details of and never get your business launched. Like I've got all these little widgets that I need to add and the software and everything, and you don't focus on gaining the client base, and you over index on things that aren't producing revenue, it's actually taking money out. How do you balance that? What could the 26-year-old Tucker have told the 19-year-old Tucker early on without the lawsuit for it to register, for it to resonate, when you didn't have that experience? Like, hey, you need to put the software in, you need to do these other things when you're but balancing it appropriately so that you're not actually losing momentum of gaining business. So it's more like whoever's listening to this, what could they learn from that?
Yeah, I would say what I would have told myself now is list out all the things that I do in a day, find out what takes the most time, and then how can I simplify it? Like for example, I used to spend an entire day sending out bills just for our mowing. And most of the time they were fairly accurate. I may have missed it. I may have lost money because I didn't record something correctly. And so we've got this new software, and now it takes me 5 minutes. So I got a whole day back. So that few $100s a month the software cost is paid for itself over and over and over just because of that. So just look for ways to leverage your time, I would say.
Yeah, and also with that, if you had customers before where there was mistakes, maybe in your favor, not in theirs, that's going to aggravate customers too.
Oh yeah, that would put a terrible name for sure if you charge more than what you actually did. Yeah, that would tank the reputation quickly.
Yeah, so it sounds like you did a good job of embracing all of that early on, because I see a lot of companies, and not necessarily just this space, but where your work is outdoors and you have crews for whatever reason. A lot of times, and maybe it's the people that start those companies as a whole, I don't know, but a lot of people fail to do this stuff early. And I'm telling you, it costs that company and growth and sales, profitability. If you're wanting to double your company, you're not going to do so. Sorry. If you're wanting to double your company, you are not going to do so by not having these processes and software and all that stuff in place, because it's going to piss the customer off, number one.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost you money, and it takes money to grow your company. So
right, exactly. And like with the billing, one of my thoughts were I could hire somebody to do this for me. But then I thought, why would I pay somebody else to do this for me if there was a software solution that I could adopt and make it a lot easier on myself? And so I went with that route. It definitely saved quite a bit of money, and it's a lot more professional now too. Things come via email. They can pay directly with a link. It's smooth versus paper bill.
My truck just went into the shop. Fuel pump failed, and the place that we take it to, I get an email and a text message, and the text message has the entire work order and everything, and allows me to just sign off on it right there. So I literally was doing that this morning and got the text message, had everything listed out. Here's the price. Do I approve everything? Sign off. And as opposed to the legacy where they call you, they have to explain. It's long, so it's taking somebody out of their operation. They're explaining, and then even legacy before that need me to come down and sign something so that they have proof that I approved, and just looking at the evolution of that and how easy that was and how much time it's probably saving them as a customer. Yeah, it was amazing. That was an awesome experience. And now I know that they're getting started on it quicker. I'm going to get my truck back faster, but just the amazing thing that just a small little piece of software for the improving both sides of the entire business.
Oh yeah. One thing I had, Tucker, I was curious. So when you made the transition from lawn care to more of the hardscapes, what influenced that decision, and how has that, so your goals with doing so, how has that panned out for you so far?
Yeah, I wanted to make, like everybody cuts grass, as you mentioned. I wanted to make a bigger impact on the family that we were working for on the property. And I knew cutting the grass grows right back a week later. So that's not much of impact. I wanted to do something where families could come out and enjoy it, where they could have parties, and not necessarily they'd be thinking about us every time, but that we would have made an impact on them. So hardscaping was first of mind, like patios and outdoor kitchens and retaining walls. And so we really focused on that. And so our marketing has changed. We don't push the mowing. We send the mowing accounts that come to us to another company. We really just hone in on the landscaping side, the hardscaping side, more the luxury outdoor living side. And so it's been an adjustment, trying to change from, especially with the guys that all they used to do for us was mow. They had to learn how to do the hardscaping, but send them to classes, and things are going good.
Nice. So I noticed this year at Equip Expo, it had been years ago when I went, and I noticed this year the hardscapes area is enormous compared to what it used to be. So you must not be the only one doing this.
Right. Yeah. I honestly think during the COVID time, a lot of people poured into their houses because they were stuck at home. I mean, they started building up, like, we can't go out. Let's at least make our place nice. And I think that really exploded that industry.
Yeah.
I'm a tech geek. I like all things like that. So it's two parts. One, is there any new cool, innovative technology coming out in the hardscaping space or equipment that's really enhancing how you do your job, improving it, that's worth other people in the hardscaping space or looking to get in that's really helped you, or that you see it's on the horizon that's going to change things?
One thing that comes to mind, it's not totally new tech, but it's getting a lot better, is the vacuum, the suction power for lifting pavers and steps and wall block. So there's we're looking at getting it for some of our machines where it attaches to a mini excavator and it will suction cup to a 800-pound step, and you can move it and set it wherever you want. So the crew just kind of guides the step down while the machine sets it. So there's no more using straps and yanking the straps out whenever you're done, and the step shifts and you have to put it back, and it that kind of stuff. And then there's a little one-man suction grips, so you can like just pick up one paver with a handle, make it a lot easier than grabbing two sides of a brick and setting it. Uh, that's been a big thing that's coming up, and we're getting ready to invest in that.
That's awesome.
I've seen a lot of videos of that, and it is fascinating to me. And
Yeah.
that has to be a huge game changer.
Yeah.
Because of what you just said. There's so much less labor
Right.
involved.
And
It's
it makes it
safety.
so much easier to safety thing. It makes it so much easier to pick up something. 100-pound pavers, those large ones. There's a two-man suction cup where each guy has two handles on each side, and there's one big suction cup in the middle of that paver, so they can pick it up and set it down against two other pavers and not get their fingers pinched. They can set it down without putting a corner down first and messing up the base. Just makes sense.
So at the Equip Expo, I'm talking to a couple guys that went to one of those training sessions. I mean, they had a massive outdoor space and had tons. It looked really cool. I wanted to go over and play. But it looks like they were hosting a lot of classes. And one of the guys came back. He's like, "Yeah, I had me," and I think it was one of the owners of the company. And he's like, "I had me and like three of my guys, and we went through. I forget which one it was, pavers or something, which one they'd done that day." He said it was so much information. It was really good, but I don't even know if I remember everything because it
Yeah.
happened. It was like cram it all in.
Yeah.
What's the learning curve and the training for you migrating into that and getting your crew and because it's design, aesthetics, materials, like
Right.
how to properly install things, grading. Just what's the learning curve for getting somebody with zero or little knowledge to being really professionally proficient in?
So the way we've done it, we just paired the new guys with someone who's already been there a while, like one our foreman or myself or somebody, and we walk them through the thought process when you start a job. Where's the water going to go? How's the pitch the pavers need to be? Where's the frost line? How deep do we need to go? Will there be vehicles on it? That sort of thing. So we just like go through a checklist of what are we doing here, and then what needs to be accounted for before we start. So, and then we just walk through the process now. So it is a very time consuming process, and it takes quite a long time to learn because every job is different, but the principles are the same. So
when you say quite a long time,
yeah, well, I mean, it depends on the person, but I mean, I would say it takes multiple jobs to start to feel comfortable with not having to follow the foreman's lead for every detail.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think that's a good way to teach,
Mhm.
where you're putting someone hands on.
Mhm.
Obviously, you got to have some safety and stuff prior, just
Yeah.
the basic guidelines.
Yeah.
When Travis brought up Equip Expo, I was wondering, was there any big takeaways for you this year there?
Yeah, well, the John Deere booth, I went through a VIP experience with the John Deere guys, and the amount of tech they're putting in their equipment now is insane. I didn't even realize that. So we have one of the John Deere skids, and they installed JD Link on it, and that'll tell us. I didn't realize what all it would tell us. It'd tell us like the fuel usage, where it's at, how long it's idled. Um, it tells you the GPS of it, and then operators have codes, and so you can see how efficient each operator is. Now we haven't totally utilized all that yet, but there's so much information we learn, and we don't use their zero turns yet. But their zero turns you can track. You can even watch it live feed striping back and forth. Whoever's mowing with it, how long the blades are on, how long they're off.
That's worth quite a bit.
Yeah,
I feel.
yeah. If we were doing mowing a lot, we would definitely pour into that, because if the yard should take 20 minutes, but the mower sat idling for 10, something's going on.
Mm-hmm. So earlier you brought up equipment being newer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do some math and some statistics and stuff to kind of make that transition from the slightly more used stuff to going new?
Yeah, nothing too specific, but I did look at the lightly used market because, like I said, I wanted it to look professional and look high end. And the lightly used market is dang near the new market when it comes to the price. And the new market has all the new warranty. And so I thought, let's roll with that. Also, the dealer support, if you buy it from them, will be a lot better because they just sold you the machine. and our dealer support have already come in handy big time, multiple times. So I wanted good dealer support. I wanted to build relationships with them because I knew we'd be buying a lot of equipment. So I wanted to start that as soon as possible. And then also didn't want the breakdowns. I mean, obviously machines will break, but a new equipment is more than likely less likely to break than a 1,000-hour piece of equipment.
Yeah, I like
Brent,
that.
Brent, I was going to say we have the new equipment philosophy at Landcorp too. And that's something that
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about a little bit. Is we've in recent years we switched a lot of our stuff to Caterpillar, and we're running. We still have some used stuff, but usually that is stuff that is maybe not on the road as often. But I think it goes back to just running the math. A lot of companies don't want the debt, so they'll go in, they'll run old equipment. However, this is all more complicated than just a balance sheet. It's also an income statement. So you may have low debt, but you got to run your numbers to see, hey, this old piece of equipment though actually is costing me more per month than a brand new item. And then also you got to factor in, like you mentioned, breakdowns. A lot of you guys aren't out there actually factoring that even in. And I know at Landcorp, when we switched from slightly used equipment to the more of a lease program with Caterpillar, that was the driving factor. Is actually our breakdown time was insane. It was thousands and thousands of dollars per month. That alone, just the breakdown time, was enough for us to do brand new equipment.
Sure.
So again, your finances is a balance sheet and is also an income statement. So don't just be scared of debt, just because of that. You got to actually look at the income, because if you're not making money, it doesn't really matter at all.
Right. Our software, whenever we buy a new piece of equipment, we put it in what we bought it for, what the terms are on the loan, what the interest rate is, how long we expect to use it, and then what it'll be worth whenever we're done using it for trade-in or selling, and then also what the insurance is on it. So our software will spit out an hourly price for that machine, and also how much fuel it uses and what the price of the fuel is on average. So we have it spit out an hourly price, and so we can just book that hourly price into every job, so we know we're recovering our overhead, plus making a little bit of profit on that, and then it pays for the machine. We won't have to worry about making, whatever the payment is each month, because we're billing that, and we know that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think bringing that up, of tracking all of your costs.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are guilty of, oh, well, that lease payment or that loan payment is $700 a month. So if I'm billing $1,000, I'm good. Well, you've got breakdowns. You got to average those in, factor those in. Yeah. You've got insurance. You've got overhead. If you have any staff in the office at all, you got to pay or bill for them somewhere. Whether that's in your equipment or on the labor side for your field workers. But just make sure you guys are covering all costs, actual all costs.
Right. And especially in the landscaping industry, a lot of it can be seasonal depending on where you're at in the country. So you've got to factor in how much it costs you in overhead per year. What are your payments and the insurance and all that per year, per 12 months? But then you also have to factor in how many days a year are you going to use that machine. You might not use it every day because you might be off a couple weeks. So you've got to recoup all of your overhead in the amount of days that you work. So it's not just divided by 12 months. You've got to actually factor that in.
No, that's good. That's good. We're nearing the 30-minute mark here, a little bit past, but one thing I wanted to make sure we got to, do you have any advice for someone just getting started?
Yeah, I would say you cannot spend enough on marketing. Now that I was told that when I first started, and I swore you could. I was hesitant to put it into marketing. That's one of the things I changed dramatically recently, and it has helped. We used to go from being booked out just a couple weeks to now being booked out months in advance, and it's all because of the marketing and how we're targeting. So I would say get known. A lot of people don't even know you exist.
Yeah, and around here in Tucker's market, you've got competition, obviously. But if some of you guys are in like a city, you have thousands of people that are competing against you. So your marketing efforts, your SEO, all of that stuff, social media, you've got to be paying Google. You've got to be paying social media to get your stuff out there, but you also got to be producing quality content. So because your sea of competition is enormous. And if you're just doing what everyone else is doing, you're going to have the same result everybody else is having. So.
Right. I guess I just learned this probably 3 days ago. I believe it was Charlie Munger used this way of thought. He said, think about everything with inverted thinking. He's like, when you go into a job or your business, he said, write a list of things. If I wanted to tank my business, what are the first 10 steps I would need to do? Like, what would I need to do to ruin the business? And that'll be easy to come up with. Our mind thinks negatively quickly. And then he said, in order for it to be a successful business, do the exact opposite of those 10 things you just wrote down. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty fun experiment for me to sit down and think about that. So it's simple. But
What's two of them?
yeah, I would say the customer communication. If you want to tank it, just don't reply, don't get back to them. So the opposite would be get back to them immediately. I don't remember the stats on this, but like if someone hits your website or sends you an email and you reply within the first 90 seconds, the closure rate on that job goes up like a few 100%. And so that's one thing. As soon as I get an email come through from one of our forums, I'm calling immediately, and they always say, "Wow, I just submitted that." I said, we're on the ball. Here we are. What can we do? So
I love that. I love that because that's one of the things I'm passionate about. And John, you're aware of this as well. That's a big deal to me is how many people reply days later, or they may reply 4 days later. You send them a response right back with a question, and then they forget to reply.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, if someone's trying to sell me something and that is their structure, I am not buying from that person, because if that's as good as it gets in the selling process right there, where I've got to beg for a response,
right,
I'm not using you for anything we do here. So that response time, obviously you've got to, move that into the field, obviously once you sell the job and start it, but during that sales process, that response time is everything, especially in this market, this world where everyone is just inundated all the time with text and phone calls and emails. It is extremely difficult to keep up and to respond. I know at LandnerCorp, we try to do everything same day or very next business day, depending on the priority. And that's been one of our biggest praises from our customers is our management staff's ability to respond quickly.
Yeah.
Now we have a big management staff compared to some other companies of our size, but that's how much that matters to us. And I think that's the way you guys are too.
Right.
And I know when we've used you, if I need something, it's usually within an hour.
Yeah.
So that's super valuable.
Yeah. I would say one more thing that we're doing, especially with the clients that like we're working on their second house, but they're not there, is at the end of every day, send them a project update, an email or a group text with a husband and wife or whatever the case is. But just send them a project update with a picture and like, this is what we got done today. This is what we're doing tomorrow. And then it feels like they feel like they're there. And I thought of that based off that inverted thinking. I'm like, I would hate to be the client that never knows what's going on, especially if I'm not even there. I've hired these contractors that they're working for 2 weeks, but I'm not there. I'm at a job at the other house. And so that's one thing we do now is at the end of every day, I send them an update, whether it's text or email, and they seem to really like it.
No, that's perfect. Well, guys, we're trying to keep these under 45 minutes. Travis or John, do you have a question for Tucker we have not asked?
Yeah, I want to ask about the marketing thing. So I think most people understand in the business in today's day and age, they have to do marketing to some degree. And most that's going to be digital too. But that can be extremely overwhelming, especially if they've never done anything. If they're a younger generation, that might be more plugged into what's resonating and what works and how it works. If it's more of a legacy company that hasn't really engaged in some of that, it can be very daunting and overwhelming. What's kind of the strategy? How did you navigate what type of marketing endeavors obviously is working for you? Where you're going to target, what are you going to do, how are you going to do it, how did you approach that, and is there any, I guess, successful things that you've done specifically that other people could replicate, but not your competition?
Yeah. So I started with the rule of three. Like you make 3 columns on a page. On the right side, you write down everything that you love to do, but that doesn't produce income. In the middle, you write down things that you don't really like to do, and then on the left side you put on what makes the most income. So you only focus on the left and you delegate the other 2. And so I like to market, but I don't know what I'm doing, so it would take a lot of my time. And so I decided we'll hire a firm that only does marketing for service-based companies. And so we hired that firm, and then they've taken off and ran with it, because the owners of that company ran a multi-million-dollar landscape business and decided they liked the marketing the best, so they started their own marketing side. So we've been using them. Just use experts in that. You don't have to be an expert at everything. Just find them. And so that's what we did.
That's good. John, you got any question for Tucker as we wrap up?
How do you determine how much money you spend on marketing?
Yeah. So right now, we're about 4% of the yearly revenue on marketing. I've always been, I just look at our monthly budget, and then if I can squeeze out more, then I'll push a little more. Or like, for example, we dumped a lot into Facebook on Facebook forums, paid a lot for Facebook forums. and that was a flop. We were doing great with messages, like driving messages to the business. So we were paying a decent amount to have that. That was working great. And I thought, hey, let's switch to forums and see what that does. And then the leads like went dry. And so we're like, well, that didn't work. So then we went back to forums and put more money in it, and immediately they all started coming back. So really, I decide on how much we're going to push out by how far we need to book out. If I'm wanting to book out a few months, I'd put some more money in it. And so that's not a real technical answer, but that's how we roll.
And I think to kind of help answer that, Travis and I actually had a conversation this morning a little bit about this and, how much money to spend on different social media aspects. But make sure you guys are running all your reports too. So if you send out something, check your website traffic after you sent that out and actually see if you've had a boost. Because if you've not had a boost at all, then clearly your messaging might just be a little bit off. And you need to tweak that, try it again, see if you get a boost. So you guys got to make sure you're out there, doing that and seeing, hey, I've done this marketing effort now for a quarter or a month or 2 months, and I've seen a result, or I've literally spent $4,000 in ads and I have not actually made anything out of it. So that's a good question.
Yeah, our marketing company sends us reports on the ROI based on how much we spent with their company and on the advertising and how much we've got back. Now it's our job to send them what jobs we got from the leads that they provided. So we have to get them that, but then they're able to tell us what kind of ROI we got. But I would also say, like in the landscaping industry, I know guys out in California, all they use is Yelp. Here in the Midwest, nobody uses Yelp for landscaping. And so like we use all Facebook, and out east, sometimes they'll use Facebook forums. And here in the Midwest, at least in our area, that didn't work. So you really just kind of find the coast seem to have like Instagram. So the East and West Coast, like Instagram advertising. Here, not so much. So find what part of the country you're in and find what works for that part of the country rather.
Yeah.
Tailoring the market, there's not a blanket answer for everything. And so there's an old adage that you can't manage what you don't measure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's important. And in this day and age, we have so many avenues to collect data. And it's a balance between tried and true practices and data. You can't get your head buried in the data and devolve into analysis paralysis and not move or dissecting. But we definitely have that as a tool where in generations past maybe they didn't. So it's definitely something that we should all be taking advantage of capturing that data, looking at how is it moving things or not, and making adjustments, and at least leveraging that where we have it. It is a new tool that it can be extremely impactful if we integrate it in and keep it balanced.
Yeah, I think that's good. And for some of you guys listening too, don't be afraid to pay Google, pay Facebook. They're actually not free. Of course, you can just post all you want, but that doesn't mean you're going to get promoted and pushed out there to your target market. So make sure you guys are doing that. I know a lot of people that do not like spending that money, but honestly, for bang for the buck, gosh, some of those ads, especially like Facebook, especially for your line of work, it is cheap.
Yeah.
For if you look at like the percent or cents per click or per view, gosh, it's super cheap. And it's your target market.
Right. And with Facebook, I mean, social media in general, people are always on there. So if you're paying it, it's always putting them in front of them and your ads in front of them. So, I mean, we get told all the time, we see you all the time on Facebook. I'm like, well, that's good. We're paying for that. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, Tucker, pleasure having you on.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys give him a follow. He's a good dude. He's up and coming. Like I said, he's young. He's done a lot. He's going to do a lot more. So definitely give him a follow. As far as the podcast, obviously we did not run ads today. Tucker's not selling anything, and neither am I. So it's a free podcast. So the only thing we ask, like us, follow us, share us with your friends. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.